and hop on Facebook. Okay. We are live. Awesome. I always wonder at the beginning of those videos when it's going to hop on and when we're ready to go. So welcome to everyone who's watching. I'm Corey Walmsley. I'm the CEO of Aurora Coriolis Publishing, and we have a special guest today. This is Angelica Perman, and she is one of the contributing authors to our book, Living Kindly, which comes out tomorrow. We're very excited about that. Tomorrow, June 8th, 2021, in case you're not watching this at the same time that we're doing this. So I wanted to bring her on and talk a little bit, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to dive into some questions and talk about what she does and all about her chapter in the book. So Angelica, welcome.
Thank you so much, Corey. It's so good to be here. So I'm Angelica Perman, a global intuitive guide and a sound healer and a #1 best-selling author already, hopefully 2 times as of tomorrow. I'm super excited about this project because it's really about a kindness movement.
Yes, definitely. And I find that so interesting because it's not a term we heard 10 years ago. It's something that is much more recent, and I see it a lot more often, which I love. So can you tell me a little about kindness healing the world? Because when we were talking, we were going back and forth in Messenger, you mentioned that, and I was just like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. And I just love that idea. So can you talk on that?
Well, for me, kindness is all about our vibration. So when we're in a positive space, when we're in an open heart, when we go out into the world, we spread that energy, we spread that vibration. Of course, when we're in suffering or pain or sadness or going through a lot, then we bring that out into the world. And it doesn't mean that if you're going through something hard, that you're necessarily spreading negativity. Because we can be in a heavy place and still be kind to ourselves and other people. So really, one little drop of light dispels all darkness. So I look at it this way. When I leave my home and I walk out into the world, if I can spread kindness to every soul that I connect with and bring more patience, more love, really connecting with other people, we don't know the ripple effect, right? The butterfly effect of our impact. So for me, when one person is offering that into the world and spreads that, if you looked at the course of your whole life, of all the people that you shared your light with, you'd be surprised at the impact. It could be millions by the time we're done, or maybe billions, because each person that we light their candle, hopefully lights 10 or more people's candles. And that's what I mean by that. In this time where it's so easy to lose our patience, we're going through so much transformation. A lot of people are in suffering and fear. We don't know that if just by being kind to that one person, maybe we saved their life. Maybe they had suicidal thoughts that day. And that one stranger being kind to them gives them hope. I know that I've had people actually tell me that in my life. I'm so glad that I met you today. I wasn't sure if I could make it through this day. And I don't even know them, but I shared my kindness with them and it had that impact. So no act of kindness is too small. And it can be like, oh yeah, whatever, kindness. Like it's kind of boring. It's not dramatic. But really the stories in our book, a lot of people have had very intense things in their life and they're choosing to be kind. They're choosing to be sharing and giving of their love and their light in the world. And that's what a light worker is. And I believe that there's a lot of light workers waking up right now, people that really want to share hope, share active service.
Mhm.
And that's why I was so drawn to this project with Lee.
Yeah.
Lee M. Clark is a light in the world, and she created this movement and this nonprofit called Kind Lee, and
Mhm.
that's the whole purpose of it, in my opinion. I mean, she may have more to say about that, but really about lighting the lights.
Yes. I love that you used the candle analogy, because not 10 seconds before you said it, it was what was popping into my head was the candles being lit. So I love that we were on the same wavelength there.
Oh,
Um,
yes. I saw the picture too. I'm very in tune. So perhaps it was you that gave me that
that might
that
be it.
thought,
That's
right? So even
awesome.
our thoughts are where our thoughts are often being picked up by other people, and we call it telepathy, but really it's an energy, and a
Mhm.
sensitive person can feel that,
Yeah.
right? And people that are shut down, they may not realize that they're getting messaging like this from other people, but
Mhm.
we're putting it out there all day long, our
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. I think that is so cool. Um, so I did want to talk a little more about the book and about your story. So I'm not going to spoil Lee's story because she's going to be talking on my personal page tomorrow about how she actually found everybody for the book.
Oh,
But
awesome.
when Lee reached out to you, what did you first think? What were your thoughts about this?
It was like, yes. It was a big yes for me. I mean, first of all, in the context, we were working together and I was offering her spiritual support. And so
Okay.
we've worked together in that context. And part of being a person that gives love and light and kindness to other people is learning how to take care of our own self. So this is something that I personally have been working on my whole life. And
Mhm.
I felt like it resonated for me on that level. Like, how can we still offer up our service in the world, but
Mhm.
not at our own expense? So when I heard about the project, inside I was like, pick me, please ask me to be a part of it, And maybe she heard my thought,
Yeah.
and then she invited me, and I was just so thrilled because I thought, this is a perfect yes and to the other things I'm doing in my life. Because sometimes with spiritual counseling, coaching, things of this type of nature, people may have like it has a mystique to it, and I don't know about that, and is that for me? And it can feel like woo woo, really. But to bring something like this to a mass audience, people that right now may need a little inspiration in their life, or
Mhm.
a lot, that's also why, because of the time, because of the pandemic, I thought this is perfect to
Yeah.
talk about the simple things, because our lives are so complicated.
Mhm.
That's my answer for that. I mean, there's so many things about it. I could talk about kindness all day. I mean, it's really a big thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said it was a simple thing, and that's one of the beautiful things I love about this book is that nobody's in there like I donated $8 million to cure cancer. It's, oh, I did this small thing, I did this other small thing. One of the stories is about giving all their students $10 and having them do something with that. So and I know both of us wrote about the impact. Mine was called From Ground Zero, so I was talking about myself too, and you were talking about healing yourself with kindness. And it's little things, and it ripples out, as you were saying. So I wanted to talk about your story, and I was curious. When somebody first asks you to write a chapter for a book, I know there's just all these thoughts going through your head. How did you decide which story you wanted to share?
Well, I had a lot of stories that I thought about, but the one that felt most relevant was also the one that pushed my buttons the most to share. It was still raw, rather than something that I'd processed really deeply, fully, and then I was recapitulating my lessons, which felt like lowbrow, like, oh yeah, I could do that, and that would be amazing, and that could be super authory, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I'm gonna pick something that is super uh, raw, and actually makes it so that I have to have a catalyst in my own experience, like catalyze going from one thing to the next, and have that change inside of me. So in real time writing about it, that felt way more authentic and scary, actually. And I tend to go towards what scares me creatively, because I feel like in that place, that's where we're going to get the juicy energy of what will reach other people. And Lee and I had a great talk about it when I was going through it. She had read my chapter and we had a talk about it. And she was talking about how some of the stories that had the most traction for her when she wrote articles for HuffPost and these kind of online magazines, these things were, like, how can I get this message out? And she shared some really personal, intense things. And those are the things that had the most traction and impact. And I thought, well, I'm not writing this to talk about myself.
Yeah.
I'm writing this to reach people. And I also thought about the characters that other people might be calling in, the different aspects or the different stories. And so thinking of myself as a character, people don't know me. How could I offer something where they might know me as a person? Not just what I do for my job, but peel off the onion layers and reveal something. And so I shared that with Lee, and she talked me through it. I was on the ledge, and she was like, really? The stories that have the most impact are those stories that push your own buttons. So it was a very intense process for me. Usually I just sit down, I breathe, I think about what I want to write, and it just flows. And I'll do one or two edits. I don't get in my head about it. I just speak and write how I speak, basically. That's my voice. This time, the first draft, if you will, oh my God, I was crying. I was like, if it was an old timey, typewriter, I would have been throwing paper and tissues all over my room.
Oh,
I was
geez.
like, what am I doing? And what if the person that I'm writing this about reads this? And I just put out the juicy details. And it was not PG-13. It was a little bit racy for this particular book. And I thought, all right, let me pull back so it goes with the rest of the stories. But the bottom line was, it was a thing that would propel me to actually go to the next level in my own personal experience, and then therefore perhaps point the light that way for other people. Like, what can you do for yourself to bring yourself out of a darker place? Sometimes it's going to take a lot of courage to do that. And it wasn't like I hadn't fully processed the event. I had, but to write about it was so raw and in real time. And I chose to keep the details out of the experience because I was talking about heartbreak. And I didn't want to put anything out there that if the person did read it, that it would put them in a negative light. And that was tough because I was still feeling the pain of the loss of that relationship and some betrayal and disappointment. So I wrote about it kind of like every man. And a few men have read it and it resonated with them too. For females, they're heterosexuals, and they were like, it really speaks to this archetype, the person that got away.
Yeah.
The person that no matter what we did, we couldn't make it work, and we wanted that person so much, right? So that's my feeling on that. I mean, that's the process, and I'm sure you went through your own process, right? Of how do I get this out? How does it how can it reach people? Well, not by being just like, kindness, it's a beautiful flower.
Right. Yeah.
Who would read that? Snore.
Yeah, I felt like I was in the trenches with you. And every adult has gone through heartbreak, of some sort. Everyone can resonate with this story. And I really felt that rawness. I really felt like I was in it with you. And as somebody who is an editor and, has edited a lot of books, that some of the stuff you were mentioning that you were trying to be cautious about, that stuff I was watching for was like, okay, are we going to paint this guy as an asshole? Because we can't do that. And it was just these little touches that let you know exactly what was going on. And it just looked like it didn't work for whatever reason. The reason wasn't important. What was important was the healing, the heart healing, and the kindness to yourself and letting yourself express your grief and then fall back into joy. And that journey in itself, I mean, I'm getting cold chills right now.
I'm getting it too. Like my whole body.
just reading like something that's that deep and in the trenches, that's something that's important. And that's where real change happens, when people are reading that stuff. So I
That,
love that you got that deep and actually went through the process as you were writing, the crying and the, okay, I'm gonna get to the lesson part. I just find that absolutely amazing.
okay, that means a lot. It actually makes me want to cry happy tears, because really that was my intention,
Mhm.
is to have it be as authentic as possible, like I mentioned. But I was in the trenches, girl.
Mhm.
I was in the trenches. And when we have a professional life, whatever that is, it calls for us to be our best self, but we can't dial it in. So I work in recovery, and I have a lot of clients in rehab and my private clients. And although I'll share some personal things, because I like to create a feeling of trust,
Right.
and they're going to reveal deep, painful, traumatic things to me. So I want to make sure that they know I'm also a human. I get them, and build that. It's still, they didn't know that I was going through this while I'm working with people. And as mentioned, it would be sometimes I'd be like in my bed crying. I'm a total basket case. I'm like, okay, if I can just get to the shower. Okay,
Yeah.
if I can just figure out what I'm going to wear, if I can just put on a little makeup. Okay, it's 5 minutes before I have to get in the car. Should I call in sick? Okay, it's 4 minutes. Okay, I need to grab my purse. It was a little like that. It was like every minute I had to kind of convince myself to show up and be more present, no
Mhm.
matter what was going on inside. And then that helped me to heal, because then I was still offering service to other people,
Mhm.
and not in a fake way. I mean, it was very much like, okay, this is where I'm at today.
Mhm.
And it would be all inside of me, not dumping it on other people.
Mhm.
But still, I mean, it was little like, I always think about this, the rom-coms, when the breakup happens and there's this, montage of suffering. And we grew up with these movies, right?
Yeah.
And then they're always the same. I mean, there's all the stages of grief. There's the eating the pizza, the boxes everywhere, the apartment's a mess, right? All the things. And then, soldiering up, maybe even dating, and it's awful. And I was like kind of experiencing that, but in modern time. I'm in Los Angeles, where I have access to all this healing, shamans, ceremonies, trauma release, all these things that I had that wouldn't necessarily be in a rom-com, right?
Right.
They just go out to a bar and complain to their girlfriends or their guy
Right.
friends that they're in pain, right?
Right.
So that was my version, like a metaphysical montage rom-com.
There's
Although I
an
didn't use
idea
a
for the
lot of
future.
humor in the story, but that was my vision.
Yeah, I love that you were sharing how you actually got through that, because yes, this is a book on kindness, but it's like it starts here. It starts with ourselves, and we do have to recognize that sometimes we have to pull in. We have our personal, or we have our professional face. We do our jobs, and then we do have to pull back in and say, all right, I'm going to have to go get Reiki today and go buy a new purse. Those two things are imperative, because I need to start feeling better. So sharing that kind of stuff in these books, I think, is so wonderful. And um, something I really appreciate, there's, I think it was 13 or 14 authors in here, and there were so many different things that we have categorized as kindness that I don't think we always look at. And
Right.
yeah, um, kindness starts with ourselves. And I think that that's so important.
It is so important, because a lot of us have been given messages to be a nice person, to be polite. I mean, hopefully we're raised with some type of manners,
Yeah.
and showing up in a way that has some social grace. Okay, not everybody, but a lot of people have had that. So let's say you're that type of person that you grew up with manners and to be polite and all these things, and maybe even be nice, if that's considered a spiritual person or a religious person,
Mhm.
to be a nice person. And that often can be at your own expense,
Yeah.
really, being nice versus kind. Kind, really, to me, is about compassion. And
Mhm.
so if we're being compassionate to other people, but not ourselves, it is not compassionate. And so how can you be kind to others if you're not being kind to yourself, it's actually robbing the other person of having intimacy with you. If you're only being kind and nice to them and you don't allow them in. And I've struggled with that. I did a post recently about it, and people are like commenting, and I thought, wow, it really triggered a lot of things. And people are like, can I help you? What do you need? And because that's kind of what I'm speaking to. I'm sorry about that. Phone call came in. Are you still there?
Okay.
Yeah. So with that said, putting that messaging out there of I'm working on being kind to myself as I'm being kind to you. And what does that mean? Well, sometimes it's just feeling our own feelings, just letting ourselves cry, just letting ourselves complain. You know, my best friend and I, we work together as well. And one of the things that we do is morning meetings, and we put a timer on and we have a recovery meeting and we share for 5 minutes. And then we ask for support, a reflection, a download. And we give this to each other so that we're not complaining all day about our
Yeah.
problems, and we get it out. So then we can be there for other people, because she's also in the healing arts.
Okay.
We can't show up and be like, oh my God, I'm so drained from helping people all day long. People won't have any clients, number one.
Right.
You know, and let's say out here, you know, this is in the context of writers, right? So writing from that authentic place, everyone has to find their own voice. And let's say your voice is dark. Like, I want to talk about that too. This isn't a puff piece. There's darkness in there, right? And I think that's important to have the polarities from the writer experience. Like, otherwise people can't understand the journey, and it's the hero's journey. There is darkness. So I you know, Joseph Campbell taught about that, the hero's journey, and that's become the popular way to write screenplays, songs, and books, right? This hero's journey. That's one of the things I was focusing on, is the hero's journey. Here's the hero, they're a basket case, they're going to go through hell, figure it out, and then come to a greater understanding of themselves as a kind-hearted person. And that's what I came to, is that if I'm being kind-hearted to myself, I do already have love in my life, but actually vibrationally, I'm going to have that partnership that this person couldn't provide. They tried, they couldn't show up for it. And that's the tragedy. Their own stuff prevented themselves from being in the love, for making that a priority. And that's what was so painful for me, because I would do anything for that. That's my intention in life. So to be met with someone going, I'm out, go please find somebody else. I can't be that.
Mhm.
That was what was the most shocking, because at the core, I'm thinking, really? In a pandemic, you can't show up for love? We met
Yeah.
each other in a pandemic, and you can't even text or call? What's happening here? But people are in their own lane a lot. And love really makes it so that we have to like get out of that self
Yeah.
narcissistic kind of energy. And being a victim can also be narcissistic. And that's, I'm also talking to that, you know, being, oh my God, this happened again. Why me? I mean, you know, that's also narcissistic, but it's part of the healing.
Right. Okay.
I know I get on these tangents because how I work, when I work, I channel. So
Yeah.
I just get into a mode, but I've heard, you know, kind of where you're coming from, and I want to weave it around to the writers. You know, writing is it's so personal, even if it's something that it's, you know, you're writing a novel about characters or amalgam of based on different people. It's still very personal, and you have to be by yourself unless you have a writing partner, and it can be very lonely. And I think that's why a lot of writers are, you know, they have addictions, and a lot of the well-known authors and writers have been addicts of some kind, because there's this painful truth to that you're on your own doing this art with your thoughts.
Mhm.
And if you want to write for the public, you're going to be judged. Can I get this out there where people will receive it? And maybe no one will give a shit about it. And it's so important to us. So how do you write from your soul and like let it go? Open the window when it's time to let other people have this story, and let it fly out. If you can be okay with the words on the page and you can go, I wrote my best story. I really did. Who wants it, baby?
Yeah. And you have to focus on those who actually want it, those who actually need it, those who are going to be able to heal from it, get something out of it. The people that you are writing for, as opposed to all those other people out there who don't honestly matter in that journey.
Yeah. And trolling has become, we have to have a name for bad behavior for people. I met a troll one time at a party, by the way. And it was fascinating
Yeah.
conversation to actually meet somebody that identifies as a troll. And they were like, I'm a troll. And I'm like, what? Like, you mean you live in the forest under a bridge? No, I'm a troll online. And they were so proud of it. And they talked to me at length about how they do this and how many platforms they've been cut off from and on YouTube and this and that. And they were just, they wanted attention so badly,
Yeah.
negative attention,
Uh-huh.
that they created almost like a lifestyle. Like they're a professional, I don't know if they get paid, troll. And I was just like, really? So what do you get out of being mean to people and having them mad at you? And they had this whole other reality. So it was actually cool because I thought, I've always wondered, who are these people
Yeah.
that take their time? It's like the antithesis of kindness is to be a troll.
Yeah. Yeah,
But we have
exactly.
trolls in our mind. We have that negative voice in our mind that says and thinks all these terrible things to us.
Yeah.
So by meeting someone that identified in a braggadocious way as a troll, I literally was like, oh, wow, this is interesting to put a face and a voice to this energy. So
Mm.
I'm speaking to that because right now, I mean, I have a beautiful community. But when you put things out, people can say really nasty, mean things. You could say the most beautiful thing in the world, and someone could find something wrong with it. Or, I don't like your grammar or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, that was my best work. And they just destroyed it with 2 lines.
Yeah.
I had a friend once that was a playwright, and his review came in, and he would read his reviews, and it said, watching this play by this author was like watching wet paint dry on a live stage. I mean, my God, how boring is that, right? And we laughed our asses off about it.
Yeah.
And we acted it all out. We're like, fascinating. What a stroke. And we just made a joke out of it. And it was, disturbing. This person put a lot into this play, and to get a play written and produced in New York City, that's a
Yeah.
big deal.
It is.
So anyway, I think having a sense of humor is important, is what I'm saying about the trolls and the negativity.
Yeah.
Not
It's about
taking it too
knowing,
seriously.
yeah, knowing where to focus, knowing what actually matters, knowing what to cut out, what's noise. I think all of that's very important. I did
Oh,
want to
yeah.
say, we were talking about, having that, the support and the right people. Kelly Commander commented, this is so dynamic. She's actually one of my copywriters, and a good friend. And she did a talk over the weekend that I attended talking about your village and finding the people who support you and making sure that you have that support in your life, belonging to a group that is, cheering you on and helping everybody reach that next level. And I actually wrote a post this morning talking about that and living kindly, and another book I was reading. And I feel like this is becoming something that's so important, finding that village and making sure you have your support system, making sure that, and I know that's something you spoke to in your book, the people who let you go into the music studio and just beat on the drums and sing. I think that's what you said. Is it beat on the drums and sing?
Well, pretty much, yeah. It's a
Okay.
friend of mine that has a studio, and we all jam there. And these are my friends that I saw during COVID. And so I had my little posse, my little pod of musical friends that could no longer perform live because of COVID, getting together and jamming. And it was so amazing because it's like little kids in the studio, but they're really professional, amazing musicians, and coming together with our tribe and not talking about the obvious that we're all like in this weird isolation, just actually being creative together. And by the way, thank you, Kelly, for that, because to me, tribe is everything. And sometimes our tribe is a tribe of one. I mean, really, we're like, okay, I want to do this new thing. Is anyone with me? Crickets. Okay. Right. So I'm a crazy person. I have this vision of something and no one gets me yet. And that can happen for people. It's not like you wake up, oh my God, yes, everything you do is delightful. We cannot wait to support you. We'll do everything for you. This is not our world. People are just too busy for that, even if they love us. So that tribe of one is like, okay, I'm a leader without followers right now. And I'm going to go do this thing that requires being a visionary, that will require me to get over my own stuff to do it and do it anyway. And that's how I think of it. It's like, okay, if we live every day like it's our last, like truly, like what if we only had 24 hours? Would I be stopping myself from writing this chapter? No. I mean, maybe to survive and eat some food or whatever, but I'd be like, I wouldn't not do it because I think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And that's kind of how I do a lot of things. And when my tribe isn't around, believe me, it's not easy going into the studio. I've worked on 4 different records in COVID, and they're about to be released this year. And I'm still in the process of mixing and mastering, and it's writing because I wrote all the songs. And that process, it was me and the mic and the producer, and that's it. And to get it up, to go in there and face that mic like this, the mic is very confronting. So authors, when you go out eventually and you speak about what you're writing, that's a whole nother thing. It's very confronting to be like, oh my God, everything I'm saying could be judged. Am I coming across okay? And when you hear it back, like in the music studio or after watching this, to listen and be like, that was interesting. What got expressed rather than judging. And believe me, when the notes aren't happening, you're not like, oh, that was a great note. It's like, oh, wow, that really sucked. That was terrible. So I would cry. I would literally cry in the booth.
Yeah.
And my producer would be looking through. He's super zen. Rusty Mack, good friend of mine. He's from Brooklyn. He's like a zen Brooklyn yogi. And he'd just look at me and be like, you need a break. And I'd be like, no, I don't need a break. And you should get this. You don't even understand, and I'd be crying. And he'd just like, all right. And you just patiently wait for me to get over it, blow my nose. And then I'd be like, and you know what would happen? Magic, because I would face all my resistance and I would hear it immediately when I was holding back, when I was judging. And I was writing about raw things that were happening in my life at that time that I hadn't fully processed. But I was like, you know what? I have to get it out. This is going to kill me if I don't. So maybe with people that are writing right now, they're dealing with difficult subject matter that's very triggering. And so I'm speaking to that. If that's what's happening for you as a writer right now, it's cathartic. And that you don't want it to be like I don't know what the word is, but when you're kind of like, oh, I'm talking all about my problems, and then it becomes kind of an egoic
Just
thing.
a big dump.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fine line, right? Is this an expression that's really true for me? Or is it also like, oh, look at me, I suffer so much. So I definitely don't want my chapter to be that.
Right.
And to leave it in that leave people in the lurch, like they're out on a limb and all your problems unsolved. And they're like, like how a lot of movies end. You're like, wait, that was the ending? The characters are alone, sad, sitting on the beach, and everybody died. Wait. I mean, there's a place for that, but that's not my favorite way to leave people.
Yeah, you, especially in a book like this, you want people to be empowered. You want them to move forward and, feel good. Not fluffy good, but like, wow, empowered, good. So I know we've been on here a long time and I could talk with you for hours about this stuff, but I did want to wrap up. So do you have some advice? I know you've given a ton of advice, but do you have something for somebody who might be thinking about writing, kind of on the edge, they've got a tough story? What would you tell them?
Well, there's so many ways you can set up your space. You know, like in the olden days, people would write with a pencil, right? And they would, you know, basically sharpen all their pencils instead of writing.
Mhm.
I think having a space energetically, but also physically, where do you feel like you want to be when you write? Is it the beach? Is it a coffee shop? Is it your room? Is it a desk? Create the space, because then it's like meditation. If you meditate every day in a certain spot, it starts to make it so you can access it very easily, right? What's the place you feel most open to express? That's one thing, because I think that's important. And set an intention. What intention do you have here? And really keep going back to that intention, because it'll keep you pure to your vision, and not get into the editor. Oh, is this going to work? Is this what it needs to be? It'll be like, okay, that's my intention. And sometimes another idea will pop in. And that happens with me. So just take some notes and like put that to the side so you can focus. And the other thing I want to say too is, as far as genre, we're really genre fluid right now. Back in the day, everything was very rigid to genre. And an
Yes.
anthology, although in a way it's a genre because it's an anthology, it's multiple authors, it's not based on one genre,
Right.
right? And so if you're having a hard time with like, is this genre or that, just get it out. Let the first draft be pure,
Mhm.
as pure as it can be. And then later, cut off what isn't true for you, what isn't the actual intention. And you have to kill your darlings. There'll be lines that you just love,
Mhm.
and you just have to kill them. You say, thank you, you're dead, bye bye. And it's ruthless, as you know, the editing process. And you were really kind the way you did it. You weren't like, we didn't get big red things all over our story. It was very kind, but we might need to kill our darlings. And that's okay. Not everything will be a part of this project that you're
Right.
working on right now. And do your best to not judge yourself as good or bad versus fully expressed. Because really, if we're speaking from our own inner voice, that's what people want to read, not someone else's voice. What's your voice? How do you speak? How do you think? And if you put that out there, that's going to reach other people as true. When it's not true, they feel it immediately. Whether it is a memoir or not, they will feel it's not true. And
Right.
you will too. And that's where the term the hack comes from,
The
right?
the what?
The hack. That's an old timey way of saying, I'm not really who I say I am. I write, but I'm a hack. It's like,
Oh,
I just write a bunch of nonsense and it's not
yeah.
coming from a real authentic place. Like people would be writers for hire and feel like a hack, like they're selling out,
Yeah.
you know? And it's very old way of talking about what we might say today is like, bullshit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I love fully expressed. So for everybody watching, if you take anything away from this, fully expressed when you're writing your book, fully expressed. So I just wanted to go ahead and wrap up because, like I said, we could be on here forever talking about this. So thanks to everybody who joined us today. Living Kindly comes out on June 8th. It will be available digital copy on Amazon. And we will be doing our paperback launch later this month. So we're excited about that too. Thank you, Angelica, for joining us. And where can people find you online?
My name, angelicaperman.com.
Okay.
Angelica Perman on Instagram. And then my music, The Sound Empress. And if you follow me, I'll follow you back. I like to do that. So on Facebook, my page is my public page is just my private, my own friends. So I tend to not accept people that I don't know there. But on
Oh,
Instagram. And
okay.
and if you have any questions, just shoot me a little DM. If you don't want to ask me a question about writing specifically.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you have questions about what we've been talking about, obviously, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and comment and we're happy to jump in on them. Thank you so much for joining us today, and everybody have a great day.
Bye.
All right, we are off.